Welcome to WEHM All Access, the podcast where we bring you in-depth conversations with the people shaping life right here on Eastern Long Island. Now, every episode, we're going to dive into the stories, the music, and the voices that define our community, from local leaders to the musicians you know and love. And throughout the summer, we're catching up with many of the performers taking the stage at the Great South Bay Music Festival, getting the inside scoop on their music, their journey, and what they're bringing to Patchogue this year. On this episode of WEHM All Access, we're joined by Leslie Mendelson, a Long Island native who's collaborated with Bob Weir and now returns home for this year's Bob Weir Celebration at the Great South Bay Music Festival. We talk about her history with Bob, her songwriting journey, and what she's bringing to Sunday's tribute set. Here's our conversation with Leslie Mendelson on WEHM All Access. It is EHM All Access, eagerly awaiting the Great South Bay Music Festival 2026 edition, and coming up on Sunday at 4:20. It's a special Bob Weir celebration with some great guests. And joining me is Leslie Mendelson. Leslie, how are you?
I'm good. Hi.
Thank you for coming on. We appreciate it. And you're a part of a fun celebration happening this weekend out at Shorefront Park in Patchogue. First, Andy Falco is kind of leading the way for this. How do you know Andy? And, of course, you've got such a rich history with Bob as well. Bob Weir.
Yeah. Well, Andy I've known because I grew up on Long Island as well, and we were in bands, crossing paths in our early 20s, and we've always been friends, and we still work together. So this was like a perfect opportunity to collaborate and, yeah.
Looking forward to it. There's a whole bunch of guests going off at 4:20 on Sunday, of course.
Perfect timing.
for Bob Weir. And you've collaborated with Bob in the past, including your duet on Blue Bayou. What did Bob bring out in you creatively that others, I'm not saying didn't, but how did he kind of work with you?
Well, there's an amazing calmness about Bob and like a sense of fun as well. And he just had just a great way about him. But, growing up listening to Grateful Dead songs and being able to actually get to sing them years later with Bob was incredible. I'm like, I know all these harmonies. And I'm like, I looked over when I was like the first time I sang Cassidy with him. And I'm like, yeah, that's the way it sounds. Like, it was pretty surreal.
What was it like performing with Bob? How did that dynamic between knowing the Dead's legacy, but also kind of woven your own identity into that performance?
Well, that's it. Just knowing these songs so well and getting a chance to sing it with, the person who actually wrote it. And there's just such a freedom and beauty in the way that he and the Grateful Dead, Jerry Garcia, that they wrote that's unlike anybody else. And, they were such an anomaly. And it's you could see that they've left such a trail because, there's just a huge scene of people trying not to do what they did, but just to emulate that space that they created.
I would imagine too, is it, it's such an honor to do the music and perform the music of the Dead and Bob. Is it, in a way, you want to make sure you honor the past with it? What's that like? Especially now that Bob sadly has passed away. What's that like for you to get on stage and perform these songs? Is it different now?
Is it different? I wouldn't say it's different. I just think that they're just like jazz and just like different genres, and times that we've had throughout history. It's like the great American songbook that will last years beyond us, I think, because it's there's so much to draw from and there's so many songs. And just like the Grateful Dead, they have roots and stuff that they pulled from. So it's just like this lineage of music and time that will keep going. And I'm just here to celebrate it.
Where did you grow up here? I know you've obviously been in Brooklyn and all over this area, but where did you first grow up?
South Setauket.
Oh, wow.
I went to Ward Melville.
Oh, wow. That's right down the road. Yeah. That's literally right down the road. What's it like to kind of perform here on Long Island? Because you grew up here and obviously in Brooklyn for a while, but what's it like to perform in front of a Long Island crowd?
Oh, they're the best. Because I still do it a lot. I've been performing, even though I moved to Brooklyn, I feel like at least a year, like once or twice a year, I'm either at the Stephen Talk House or the People's Pub. I've done shows with Andy. We've done stuff at the Bay Shore Theater.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think that's what it's
the
called.
Bolton Center. Yeah.
The Bolton Center, yeah. And I feel like there's more, but like there's just certain places that every time I play, there's just people that I've grown up with playing for so long that it's always great.
Well, it sounds like you've just really worked with some amazing people over the past few decades. What's that like? Is it kind of surreal to look back because you've gotten to work with so many great people that you kind of grew up listening to?
Like I come back super cocky. I was like, who I've worked with, right? like,
Well,
don't you know who I've worked with? I think, I mean, it's an honor. I've, being able to work with Jackson Browne and Bob
yeah, Jacob
Weir,
Dylan. Yeah.
just, yeah, but they're just dudes. No, I'm just kidding. No, there's so much, I have so much respect for these people, and it's incredible that I've been able to work with them. Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
made me super cocky. So that's, it's what
Well,
it
you
is
should
now.
be.
No.
I'm kidding, of course.
Stand back.
Well, no, you worked. I mean,
No.
you've had a chance to work with. Growing up on Long Island and getting out there, it's so cool that you've done it. There's so many. It's really tough being a musician on Long Island, and you've broken through, and you've done a lot of different things over the
Well,
years.
that's nice because I never think I have.
But you have no. I mean,
I'm still working, like Don, like there's always another level, and it's just keep working. I think that's it, right?
how long did it take for you to kind of develop your own voice, or just the comfort level to really, because you have such an amazing quality to your voice.
Oh, thanks.
And warm and into. How long did it take for you to feel comfortable?
That's interesting. I think as a kid, I was like unwieldy. Is that the word? I just think that like I would just sing. And then I remember taking vocal lessons. And I remember this one woman, she was a teacher, and I sang this jazz standard, and I was quite cocky thinking I was good. And she was just like, how you just sang that? She's like, never sing it like that again. I was like, oh, she's like, I want to hear the song, not your voice. And that
Interesting.
always stuck with me, like how important the melody is. And when I learn a song, I really try to stick to the melody as much as I can. And I feel like that's helped guide me as a singer.
When you were younger, I read that your father was a trumpet player,
Still
music
is.
teacher.
He'd be really upset if you said was.
Yeah, sorry. Your father is a trumpet player and a music teacher.
I'm not dead yet.
What was that like in your household growing up? Was there always something on, and different types, I'd imagine, of music too?
We had a really good stereo system growing up. My dad had a great record collection, and my mom worked for like a speaker company, I think before I was born. So they had like, I think it was JBL or
The best of both
JVC.
worlds. Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
like
cool.
I remember they had this great, like huge speakers and a great turntable. And so my dad kind of like was in a bit of the jazz world, like, so I remember like hearing certain records that really just sounded amazing. And then we had a piano growing up, and I would just sit at the piano, and I kind of like just felt my way around, and just playing by ear. But there was times where my dad would just sit next to me, and we'd just play and kind of improvise. I remember those being really special moments that I still, they're very vivid. And I was probably like 3 or 4, maybe 5 years old, maybe a little old, around there. It wasn't that old, but it definitely had an impact on me.
What moment, how old were you? Do you remember when you kind of knew that music was going to be your life, that you could do this?
I think it took me a while actually, because I remember like I mean I always had music in my life, but I don't know if I thought I could make it, like a living. And then sometime in my 20s, I think I was driving around teaching piano lessons, and I'm just like, F this. I'm like, I can't, I kind of like, I'm just so like sitting in traffic one day. I think I was just like, this got to be something else. And I think it was just like a boiling point of me just wanting to figure out how, like, it's not like about not hustling, but just changing the hustle.
And working differently. Is that when you moved to New
Working
York City,
differently.
or?
Yes, yeah. That's kind of when, and I realized that I needed some more training too. And I went and took some classes at the Brooklyn Queens Conservatory, and, like just trying to like get myself better.
What was
because
that?
I knew I needed to
Yeah.
be better. I wasn't, I didn't feel like, I don't know.
Well, that's interesting. What was that transition like moving from Long Island, where you're, I'd imagine, comfortable, but going to a scene where there's probably more talent and a lot more people? What was that transition like to kind of find your footing?
Well, let's see. When I first moved to the city, I got tipped off to a songwriter circle run by Jack Hardy,
Okay.
who was he was one of the he was very instrumental in the folk scene in the
Yeah.
70s and 80s and 90s, and lots of famous folk artists came through there. And every Monday night, he'd have a circle where, like a group that everybody would come with a new song that they wrote that week or something they'd been working on. And people would bring wine, and he'd make pasta in his like little apartment in the West Village. And I remember thinking, well, I think Suzanne Vega would come and sit in, and, just great people. And I was thinking, well, I know I'm not the best, but I'm not the worst. And
That's important, though.
do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, so it's just like, all right, and I have a lot to learn. And those kicked my butt. I had to really, come up with a song, but that's when I just felt like, but there was hope because I wasn't the worst.
No, sometimes I think that's important that you know that there's something to build on.
Yeah.
And being around different people, and imagine, helps your confidence and helps you grow as a writer and of course. And I'm curious, speaking about songwriting, and I know you've written a lot with your guitarist Steve. What does that partnership look like for you? How does that work together when you're kind of crafting a song?
Oh yeah, Steve McEwan, British Steve, we call him. And let's see, we've been working together for a while. We I'll have an idea, then or he'll have an idea, and then we just kind of dive in, and we'll kind of just sing nonsense. Sometimes Steve will have a great idea with lyrics already there, and I can just help shape it. It comes in all different shapes and sizes, but yeah, I've been lucky to have such a great writer to work with and bounce off of.
So many great originals, but also covers of songs. And I'm curious, you've done
Hmm.
so many different artists like Bob Dylan or Carole King or Roy Orbison. What draws you to a cover? What kind of makes you want to kind of decide you want to make it your own? What kind of attracts you to certain songs?
Well, A, if I can sing it,
That makes sense.
let me get there
It's always
first.
first box to check, I'd imagine.
Because sometimes I'll be like, I love that song, and I try to sing, and it's like, oh, I sound terrible, or it's not for me. Like, so I have to find a way, like, to get my head around a song. Like I've been doing the song for a long time. Don't Get Me Wrong by the Pretenders,
Yeah.
and I found a way to do this very minimalistic version for a very produced song. Like it's got that big 80s production to it, and I kind of stripped it down and do this a little arrangement where I have like a couple of just strings I play it on, like two or three, and very minimal, and then it kind of builds. But like I knew I loved the song, I could sing it, and I felt like I made my own arrangement with it. Yeah, like you want to be able to do something a little unique with it, or just us. And also just sometimes I sing the song. Like the other night I did a show up in the Berkshires, and I got a request at the end of the night for the Bee Gees to Love Somebody,
Yeah.
and I'm literally just sitting at the piano singing the song, but then everybody sings along, and it's really nice. But sometimes you don't have to do anything if it's a good song, and you just feel like it comes from your heart. I think that's really it. You just to be able to deliver it.
What was it like during the pandemic? The last 6 years certainly have been interesting. What did you work on the most, or even just kind of get away? What kind of inspired you during that time? And to get back to your most recent record, After the Party, came
Mhm.
out. Where did that all come from? I'd imagine it was inspired by that time.
Well, it's interesting because my record came out. My 2020 record came out, If You Can't Say Anything Nice, in April
Okay,
of
yeah,
2020. So that was like, wah, wah. But
yeah, that's got to be
actually,
hard for an artist.
it was hard. And it was also because, let's face it, it's a very competitive market out there. The fact that the pandemic came and like leveled the whole thing was interesting to me
Yeah.
because it felt different. Because, we do the same old thing every day. And this was something different. It was like outside the box. And I actually kind of found a way to get through it. doing a lot of those Zoom concerts and Facebook or Instagram Live, and just I remember haven't really, in the early days, nobody really saw each other that much. And then all of a sudden you'd go on to Instagram Live and you'd see all these hearts and people like, hey. And I'm just like, I was so moved by it because I think we all needed some connection. And so those were great. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed that. I mean, it was also a pain in the butt, but like, because you're like, ugh, just want to like get on with it already. But yeah, I think I made the most of it. And then, so that record came out. And then finally, at some point, I was like, I need to start writing again. And I think I didn't want to sing about the pandemic at all. I think there was things that came out of it. Like I remember like Signs of Life. That was
Right.
one of the first songs I'd written because I was thinking, where is everybody? I did that like Pink Floyd, is there anybody out there? And just like, so there was inspiration that came from it, but I didn't really want to sing about that. So it was more, I think After the Party was just a celebration of music that I've loved throughout my lifetime, whether, there's some country, there's some more like experimental stuff on it. And yeah,
That's
it feels a little more joyful than say if you can't say anything nice, which was kind of it came out in 2020, so I think that was a big record of like I'm like just releasing my frustrations of those times.
that makes a lot of sense. After the party, worked with a couple different producers for it,
Yeah.
including Peter Asher. What was that like to have a lot of different voices with you? How did you kind of manage those different
Well,
voices and
it was
different
kind of
perspectives?
easy. So
Nice.
we had two different producers along with Steve McEwan, who kind of helped with the production. But it was, I had been working with Tyler Chester. He's a great producer out of LA, worked with Madison Cunningham. And I had this,
That's right.
it
Yeah.
just came up. I had a great opportunity to work with him. We did three songs and they sounded really cool. And then I got another opportunity to work with Peter Asher. And I remember talking to Jackson Browne about it because I had started working with Tyler, and he's just like, hey, if you have an opportunity to work with Peter, you should. And so we did a few songs with him. And then I kind of assessed everything at the end, and I'm like, it all goes together. So it became one record. And
You
Steve was there to like, and I was there, to be able to bridge the gap.
nice, and then you did it, I believe, at Jackson Brown Studio.
Yes, we did at Groove Masters in Santa Monica.
What was different about that as far as other studios compared to it? Was there something that really special that stood out during that process?
Well, it's really nice to be able to work in a good studio, and that happens to be a great studio. Plus, when Peter asked me who I wanted to work with, I I was just like, yeah. I knew he'd worked with this collection of musicians for forever, and I was just like, what are the chances that we can get some of those guys? And he's just like, we can get, we can try for anyone. So my dream was to work with. I wanted to work with Leland Sklar, and we got him. Jim Keltner, we got him. Waddy Wachtel, and Jim Jorgensen. We had a lot, John Jorgensen, and we had a lot of like just great musicians on this album, and it was thanks to him because he could pretty much, because he's Peter Asher, get whoever he wants. And yeah, and it was just a, there's a reason they've been on a lot of hit records other than
Yeah.
just being great musicians. They just all had really great attitudes and dispositions in the studio.
Well, Leslie Mendelson coming up this weekend, the Bob Weir Celebration. And before we go, I'm curious if you could tell us more about the moment about Blue Bayou, how that happened with the
Oh
story
yeah.
with Dead and Company rehearsing, and Bob was there. What was that like for you? And I know you were singing Roy Orbison, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so
With Blue.
around that time I had been invited to do We're Here, which was Bob Weir's web series, and that it was kind of he would invite singer songwriters to his studio in Marin at TRI, and around that time when I did it, it was just it was pretty great. And we were doing some gigs together at that time, so we were working together, and I had a little studio in that in at TRI, and I remember just working one day, and I was singing Blue Bayou, and they were, like you said, working. They were starting to put Dead and Company together,
That's right.
and Bob walked past my room and he was like, "What are you working on?" I was just like, "Oh, I was trying to like, working on a stripped down version of this song, like a lot of delay and kind of just a very kind of echoey vibe of the song. And then I started, he's like, well, that's one of my favorite songs. And I'm like, get out of town. And so we started singing it. And then when the studio was free, we went in and recorded it together, just did a live version. And then I put it on my record, 2017, Love and Murder. And it was one of the songs on that record.
How do you, because we've talked a lot about Bob Weir's music, but I'm curious because you did get a chance to know him. How do you want people to remember him? Not just the music, but based on your own time spent with him as a person, what kind of stood out to you?
That he was so open. And, that first time when I worked with him, I was with Steve McEwan as well. And the way that they played guitar together was absolutely brilliant. But I remember there's just a lot of space in the music and not being afraid to leave space. And Bob created this place where he could just play certain notes that would open up more space. He did it for Jerry. And, but it kind of went with his personality too. He wasn't afraid to make mistakes or take chances, but he was also very calm and cool. And yeah, he was just lovely.
Is there a certain song you're looking forward to performing this Sunday?
Yeah, but I don't know. Should I give it? Well, I guess it's not a.
Yeah.
You probably know the set list already. Cassidy is one of my favorite songs, and I've sung it with Bob. And anytime I get a chance to sing it with somebody who can, sing harmony, it's such a cool song, and I just love it. And so yeah, I always look forward to singing that song.
We can't wait. Bob Weir Celebration coming up on Sunday. Leslie Mendelson, thank you so much for your time. It's nice to get to know you a little bit.
Thank you. You too.
I really appreciate it. And thanks for coming on. We'll see you on Sunday on the main stage, GreatSouthBayMusicFestival.com for tickets. And it should be a lot of fun out there with a great collaboration on stage. And I'm sure that it's just nice to see Andy and so many different musicians getting together for this. I know Rob from Dark Star Orchestra, Eric from the Krasno Band with Pat Falco, his brother will be there.
Eric Finland. Yeah.
So it's going to be a nice afternoon.
Super fun.
Out at Shorefront Park. Leslie, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right. Take care.